Right, so welcome everyone, and thank you for sharing some of your celebrations already, from sunshine to small habits and half term and Easter. And yeah, I'm celebrating being here with you because the fact that you're here, or if you're somebody who's watching the recording, you've put yourself at the top of some long list, because we've all got lists and all have lots of things to do. We could be many other places, but you've gifted yourself the time to stop and be here. So I don't know if anybody else has a glass of champagne handy. Oh, there we go. Is there champagne in that? It doesn't matter. It's not about drinking champagne. You could be drinking tea, coffee, water, but I've specifically got a sparkling bubbly drink because if you can see, the glass is quite cold, so it's missing up. You can see there that all sparkling drinks, so be it champagne or Prosecco or Cava or any kind of sparkling drink, is made up of many, like dozens, hundreds, even thousands of bubbles that consistently go up. And this is a great metaphor for well-being, especially our energy. And the word I use in a lot of my workshops is effervescence. So how can you stay effervescent? What does effervescent mean to you? Like, feel free to pop into the chat or come off mute. Like, what do you think about when you hear effervescent?
Lively, alive.
Yeah, alive, yeah, full of life, yeah. Sparkly, I like that. Sometimes people say to me, uplifted, light. Yeah, so a lot of it's exactly what the bubbles are doing, right? And this is what I think a lot of us would like to feel more consistently, or more of, full of life, vibrant, sparkly, uplifted. And it's not about the one big thing that you do. It's about the little things that you do, like these bubbles, but consistently. If you don't do them and stop, then the opposite of sparkly, I guess, is flat, right? So just like I shared in our first coaching session, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to recap what we spoke about in the first session and the second session. And then today, I'd like to explore this concept of effervescence and specifically celebration, and why it's helpful, not just to feel good. Because when I say celebration in today's context, it's not about, the big parties we throw for weddings or birthdays or big milestones like Easter, that's come up. But it's about the feeling of feeling good, or maybe grateful or joyful, or maybe celebratory. But for some people, celebration is a big thing. And what I'm talking about is the little moments where you allow yourself to feel good. I call that to celebrate, because it's a mini celebration, right? When you feel good, when you look out a window and you notice something and you smile, or you do an act of kindness, or you give yourself a metaphorical pat on the back because you've done your tiny pledge. And that has a very powerful neuroscience effect on us. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. And where to from here, because we started this journey 22 days ago. Actually, no, it was 23. No, 22, one more than 21, because yesterday I was away for the day, and that's why, and I didn't know if a Monday was a good day to have a finale. So I thought I would choose a Tuesday, but I'm hoping this is not the last 21 days, that this is the beginning of a journey with you. And even if I don't see you again, I would love to, but if I don't, that you continue to put some of the magic and effervescence that you've put into your well-being now over the last 3 weeks into the rest of your well-being journey. So let me share my slide here. So yeah, the first slide was a reminder of this concept of celebration and effervescence and joy, which isn't easy, especially in the context of the world that we find ourselves in. There's so many reasons to feel flat, deflated, defeated, lack, scared, overwhelmed by what to do around our well-being. However, we know that when we focus on our well-being, we're able to have more choices, and choices gives us strength and power. So I shared with you in session 1, this beautiful Chinese proverb, a healthy person has 1,000 wishes. It's like a person that's effervescent and full of joy has got thousands of bubbles going up. Whereas when we're feeling potentially down or sick, like Paula, you just shared, you're just so grateful that you're feeling better. We often then just have one wish, and that is to feel well again. And this idea of well-being and whatever your sense of purpose is, and that's very important for you to think about. I know that I shared that video during the session, and then I also shared the link afterwards of that more elderly gentleman who had a long-term vision that he wanted to lift his granddaughter up to put the star on the Christmas tree. And so he started training to lift a kettlebell. And every day it was hard and hard, and it got easier and easier. And then it turned into a little bit of running, and it turned into changing other parts of his life. And he got to lift his granddaughter up and help her to put the star on the tree. So what is your vision that's going to draw you when it gets a bit tough, especially in the beginning, And actually, I'm curious if you are happy to pop into the chat or to share with me, what was your purpose for doing this program? Like, why did you decide, hey, I'm going to go and do this? Was it because you wanted to just feel healthier or more vitality, more effervescent? Did you want to maybe improve your sleep, or another point on the Wellculator? Is it because you wanted to feel maybe more calm or have peace of mind? I know for me, the reason why my well-being is important to me at the moment is I really want to manage my mental health and my emotional well-being and be able to create my own oasis of joy. So I'm sparkly on the inside, no matter what's happening around me. So people can be drinking polluted water, I'm drinking the sparkles, because no one can control that. Only I can. But what was your reason? Let me pop up the chat. To feel healthy and have more energy, to think about your health and well-being. Yeah. Healthy. Yeah. So healthy can be quite broad. So it's important for you to know, what does healthy mean for you? Because for some people, being healthy means, it doesn't mean maybe being able to be fit or strong or be a certain weight. It's maybe being able to manage their diabetes. So as long as you know healthier and energy, how do I know when I'm healthier and I have energy? Is it because you've got mental energy? Is it because your physical energy is high? So it's a good idea to think about, what is your why and what drives you? Because this is a long-term journey, right? So there's no destination. We don't get to the end of well-being, as long as we're alive and breathing, it's something that we can work on. And thank you for sharing that. For you, it was to feel stronger and cope on bad days. Yeah, so we are aligned. At the moment, that's a very strong purpose for me, because I have to support so many people and so many more people through my clients. And I've noticed how if I don't look after myself, then I start taking in their energy. So that's great. Have less headaches and get up in the morning without snoozing. That's very precise. That's what I'm talking about. Because that's when you can measure whether the little bubbles are working. And if they're not, what can you tweak or redo in order to help you with that? Because, yeah, ideally, well-being is meant to be like the picture on the screen. It's like an oasis. It's meant to make us feel good. And often well-being and programs and products around well-being make us feel bad. They make us feel like we're not spending enough money, that we aren't thin enough or beautiful enough or energetic enough, or we could be doing the next best thing, or like we should be doing this and that. And it can feel like everyone else is doing it except you. And that's not true. It's a very personalized journey. It's why whatever you do from now on is that you always stay curious about how you are. And when you're making changes, ideally make them as small as possible and be consistent. So just like there are lots of bubbles that consistently rise up in this glass, there's not one big bubble that comes up. How can you do small things regularly and feel good about them? Feel good, because this is a key ingredient for behavior change. And often when we try to change our behavior, we don't feel good because we try to do too much at once. We make it too complex, we make it too complicated, and then we feel guilty, and then we feel bad. And that's when we fall into that trap of, oh, I'll just start after the weekend. Oh, I'll start on Wednesday. Oh, I'll start on Monday. Oh, I'll start next season. Oh, I'll start in the new year. And then time just goes past and we don't do much. And so back to the champagne. By the way, for those of you that don't know me well, my parents are from Champagne. So my whole family, they're all born and bred in the Champagne region in France. So even though I was born in South Africa, I was deeply influenced by the French approach to food, and there was champagne at every meal. So I have a deep appreciation and love for champagne in particular. And I love the process of how champagne is made. So for instance, champagne, what makes champagne different to Prosecco is it's something called the second fermentation. It's called la prise de mousse. It's the capturing of the sparkle. It's a beautiful term. And in order to create the bubbles inside the bottle, so when you pop the cork, you've got this beautiful fine bubbles, as opposed to maybe the slightly larger bubbles that happen when a drink is carbonated and not la prise de mousse, the capturing of the sparkle. Two things have to happen. You have to add in some yeast and sugar. And when the cap is released after the resting, so resting is important. That's why the second coaching call, we spoke about different types of rest. To be a fine sparkling drink, you need to rest. And remember, we spoke through the 7 types of rest. I'll just pop up that slide. So we looked at, of course, we need sleep. And that's such an important part of the Wellculator. But we also need mental break. We need sensory rest. We need emotional rest, creative rest. So we spoke about these different types of rest. And if you've missed it, or you can't even remember that, you can always go back to the recording or reach out to me and I can send you some information. And we also did some practical breathing and relaxation exercises. So you might remember the one specifically called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. Has anybody, by the way, practiced any of those resting techniques that we spoke about? Have you implemented anything around specifically the second coaching call around rest that you can remember? Because I had 2 people message me and say thank you for the box breathing, because they had heard about it but hadn't known exactly how to do it and had been using that. So that's where, you start off with maybe 4 counts. And when you can do more, you go up to 5 counts, 6 counts, or 7 counts. And you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. And if you do 5 rounds of that, perhaps even 10, it can deeply, deeply relax your nervous system. So much so that it can make you quite lightheaded. So it's a good idea to practice it when you're seated, definitely not standing or driving. Yeah. But back to the champagne. La prise de mousse, the capturing of the sparkle. We need to add something in, so some yeast. And then when they release the cap after the resting, they need to release some of the liquid because of the pressure before they put the cork in. So this is a lovely story around well-being. We constantly need to think about what I need to add in, not just what must I release and take away, because it's easy to say, oh, I need to lose weight. So I'm going to cut out carbohydrates, or I'm going to drink less alcohol, or have less sugar, or I'm going to spend less time on my phone. And it's all this taking out, deprivation, which can make us feel not very celebratory. Like, yay, I'm not eating dessert. or yay, it's Easter, I'm going to restrict my chocolate. I can see some of the expressions on the screen. That doesn't make us feel good. So don't just think about cutting things out when it comes to your well-being. I often challenge people not to use the word less or take away or remove, to rather think about what can you add in that can help you displace some of the maybe not so good things that you want to shift. So how can you add in more water so that you drink less coffee? How can you add in a glass of sparkling water before you have red wine with your dinner to drink less? How can you add in vegetables so that you automatically eat maybe less carbohydrates? So that's another little link to the champagne making process, not just the effervescence and the story of the bubbles, so the small things that we do to help to uplift us, but also the permission to feel good. So I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But then also what champagne needs to sparkle. It needs rest, which we spoke about in the second coaching call. And it needs us to think about what do we add in, not just what do we take away. And then a guideline around what you can add in. And this is a tool you can always come back to. So regardless of whether we're on a program together or you're on somebody else's program or you're doing anything about your well-being, I highly recommend that you keep the Wellculator as one of your tools in your toolkit. I designed it a long time ago, 2006, and I personally use it. I just saw a client for the 6th time in 1 year because I see him every 2nd month. And we went through the Wellculator again, and he almost knows exactly what's coming, but we refine each avenue and see how potentially he could feel stronger in each one. So now that you see the Wellculator on the screen, do you remember what your personal pledge was around the Wellculator? Yeah. What can you celebrate about your personal pledge today? And I was going to break us up into breakout rooms, but we're quite a small group. So why don't we have a bit of a pair and share? And if you're watching the recording, I'd really like you to think about this. What was your personal pledge? And what are you celebrating about it? So I know that I've had one person contact me yesterday saying, oh, it's coming to an end tomorrow, but I'm not ready to end. I haven't gone through the material. Am I still going to have access to it? So I just want to say yes. You absolutely will have access to the online material. It's just good to have a deadline, right? Because most of us don't mobilize energy until we know, oh, we got to do something. So that's why I thought, well, I would like to get testimonials and feedback about the system and what works and what hasn't. And a gift back to you was to say, okay, for 21 days, I'll create a bit of a container and we'll have 3 coaching calls and I'll create a WhatsApp group. So what I'd like to ask you is, no matter how small an action you've taken, even that person was like, they were helping a family member who had just passed on and there was a lot going on. So I said to her, look, relax, you've joined, you know that you want to get to this, you have an idea of what you would pledge, and that's good. You're already ahead because there's so many people out there who have never seen the Wellculator, who aren't thinking about their well-being right now. So even that can be celebrated, the intention to do something. And one tiny step, like contacting somebody and saying, hey, I'm going to invest in my well-being. So on that note, I'd love to know, those of you that are here, what little celebration or big celebration do you have around your personal pledge that you made 3 weeks ago? And if you want to remind me what your personal pledge was, I'd appreciate that because I didn't bring a list with me. I should have done that, actually. I've been quite touched by how different everyone's pledge has been, from drinking water to eating vegetables to getting to bed earlier, focusing on sleep, being more mindful and aware of stress. Yeah, that's a great celebration, Paula, really, that even though you weren't well, you still managed to have some fresh fruit every day. Yay for your immune system, because the fiber and the phytonutrients and the vitamin C, very good. So that's a big celebration. I want to do a bit of a celebration. There we go, a little bit of a star. Fantastic. Anybody else happy to share what your personal pledge was and if there's something that you want to celebrate around that? And you've done that every day. You've also had a piece of fruit with your lunch. Okay, wonderful. And for the two of you, in terms of eating the fruit, how does it make you feel knowing that you have done the pledge that you set out to do? How does it make you feel? Proud. That's lovely. Santé to that. Feels good. Okay. So this feeling that you've just had, the sense of being proud or happy, is what I mean by allowing ourselves to feel good and to celebrate the small things, because that helps the brain think, I need to repeat that. Because when you feel good or proud, you release a little bit of dopamine, and dopamine in your brain makes you want to repeat the behavior that you just did that made you release that. Okay, so we have somebody else who shared, also eating lots of different fruit. Oh, eating lots of different fruit. Yeah, the variety is good because the rainbow spectrum gives us the spectrum of the nutrients that we need. And then having a digital detox before bed for mindfulness. I love that you recognize that you had a stressful time and you were able to readjust yourself. That's very powerful. And drinking a glass of water every time you went up for a cup of tea. I could be doing that a bit better at the moment. That's wonderful that you may have even exceeded that goal. That's great. That is great, because these little behaviors and pledges, what they can do, let me just see one more. Thank you, by the way, for all the sharing. Oh, and Fabrice, I see you've joined us. Wonderful. You were quiet and you snuck in there. Okay. So you've been going for walks, even if it was raining. Good for you. It's a lovely thing to do at the end of the day. If you ever struggle with sleep, I know a lot of people go for a 10-minute walk before going to bed, even if it's bitterly cold. because it's a complete shift. It's called a behavior interrupter, and it gets you out of your head into your body, especially if it's actually cold, and then you're better able to relax and go to bed. And then we have another pledge around tackling chocolate cravings. And having more colorful plates that introduce healthy snacks. That is how. So that's a lovely example of, instead of saying I'm going to eat less chocolate, is to say I'm going to bring in some healthier, more colorful, varied snacks and see if that helps displace the chocolate. And remember, we're never looking for perfection. We're not looking for perfection. In fact, I would like to share this concept with you, because we think we have a goal. Like, you had this little personal pledge over 21 days, and you might have thought in the beginning, oh, this is going to be super easy, right? My expectation is that it's just going to be smooth sailing, straight line, but nothing in life is ever smooth, right? So in reality, we have ups and downs and roundabouts. We have weeks which are stressful, and then we can't do the digital detox, or we maybe end up having chocolate when we didn't want to, or whatever it might be. How we respond to those ups and downs is where the growth lies. So I don't know, has anybody come across the Japanese art form called kintsugi? I'll pop the word into the chat. Anybody come across that? So kintsugi is, so I do mosaicing as a hobby. And when I came across this form of, it's different to mosaic, because, you know, mosaic is when you take pieces of broken ceramic or glass or different types of tiles or materials, and then you put them together with grout and you can create beautiful artwork. I love doing that. But this specific form of Japanese mosaic art is, if a bowl, especially an expensive bowl or vase or any kind of artifact that is worth a lot, is broken into pieces, instead of throwing it away or trying to carefully stick it together with clear glue so that you can't see it was broken, there are masterful kintsugi Japanese artists. And this takes a long time, apparently, to get this right and to master this art. And what they do is they put the pieces back together using gold or silver lacquer. So it's a bonding agent that actually has gold in it. So it does two things, right? It makes it very obvious where the cracks were. So when you put the vase or the artifact or the bowl back together, you can see where it broke into one or two or maybe 20 pieces. So it highlights the imperfections. And secondly, the item that has been put together in this process is esteemed of much higher value than the original item. So even if the original item was a one-off piece or a really exclusive or done by a really famous artist, if it's put back together and it's got this gold lacquer, it's actually esteemed of higher value. So the lesson here is, even if we are not perfect, and remember the slide before, we won't be perfect. Things won't go as planned. We will maybe think that we've failed, but I don't want you to use that language ideally to yourself, because failures are really just opportunities for growth. You know, they might feel like a setback, but they give you an opportunity to see something that you didn't know before and to potentially bounce forward and to add in your gold lacquer and say, okay, so I didn't get that right, but I can always try again today, or I can do it a bit differently, or I can try something else. And then when you put it together, to not feel bad, but to realize actually you're stronger, because you now know more than what you knew yesterday or last week because of this experience that you've had. So I think the message here is to not try and be perfect, to expect things to actually maybe go wrong, but to not see them as wrong, to see them as opportunities to maybe be stronger. Yeah. What do you think about that? Has anybody come across that, or does that resonate with you? I'll perhaps, I'm going to make a note, and in the follow-up, I'll send a link to kintsugi. So if you're interested to read more about it. I'm actually going to Japan in November, and I specifically want to try and see if I can go see where they do this art form, although apparently it takes a long time, weeks, maybe even months for some of the artifacts. So I don't know if I'll be able to get that right. But I do want to speak to somebody in Japan who understands this, because I think the message is so powerful about we're actually more valuable in our imperfections It's also a way to acknowledge our emotions. You know, our emotions can go all over the show. And sometimes we can feel bad for not feeling good or happy or confident or calm. But we need to feel sadness and melancholy and frustration and anger in order to be alive and human. You know, it's not healthy to only feel one range or one type of emotion. So this is where the message around celebration is so important. That if we allow ourselves to feel, you know, when we see people drinking a sparkling wine, if you go to a restaurant or bistro and you see a couple or a family drinking a glass with some sparkling wine, we generally always assume that they're celebrating, right? Now, I don't want you to wait for big moments to celebrate and feel good. And this is a difficult thing to do because it's very vulnerable to feel joy or to feel happy. So when we allow ourselves to feel good, it makes us feel vulnerable. I'm not sure if anybody has come across the researcher Brené Brown. Yeah, so Brené Brown has done some phenomenal work in the emotional intelligence space, and she's famous for, well known for her first TED Talk, because she's done another one, and she's also done a documentary on Netflix around shame and vulnerability. And according to Brené and her team's research, the most vulnerable emotion that humans can feel is joy. Because when we allow ourselves to feel happy, we potentially could then feel sad. And so it's easier to be like, oh, things are not so bad, or can't complain, or it's not that great, or because then you can't really maybe be hurt, or that thing that's making you joyful can't be taken away. However, the more we study joy, happiness, gratitude, the more we see how good it is for our nervous system and for the brain. And specifically in the context of changing behaviors. So how do you feel about your personal pledge? Now, you've all shared your celebrations. Thank you. Do you feel that you could maybe move on to something else? Yeah. Okay. If you're not sure, or you feel like, you know what, the 21 days went a bit quickly and you had a few, you know, ups and downs, like I just shared, then don't change it just yet. Stick to it. Because whenever you create a new behavior, the idea is to make it easy and tiny so that it's obvious for you to do. And then you set yourself up for success by anchoring it. So finding a place, a time, a person, you know, commit to it, remind yourself where you're going to do it, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, by the kettle, next to your bedside table. It's very important to create cues in your environment, which is why in the coaching session 1, I actually asked you to maybe use a lipstick on a mirror, or to write post-it notes, or to send yourself a message, or to send me your pledge. But actually remind yourself about where and when it's going to exist, because if it doesn't have a place to exist, it won't grow. And then the most important step is when you do your behavior. So when you are giving yourself a mindful minute before bed, when you are getting up and sitting upright in bed rather than hitting the snooze button, when you are having a piece of fruit at lunch or in the afternoon, or when you're going for a walk, even if it's raining, when you're hugging trees on your walk, thank you for sharing that, Fabrice, is to allow yourself to feel good in that moment. Now, that feel good can be very subtle. It can be small. It can be, oh, yes, I need to feel good. And the thought is good enough. Maybe you can add a smile, literally lifting the corners of your mouth or smiling to yourself. Maybe you can even add, like, you know, a thumbs up or a fist pump, or I've got something called a diggle. So a diggle is a wiggle, something between a wiggle and a dance, but it's something that makes me feel delight. So I call it a diggle. And when I'm starting new behaviors, if I'm on my own, of course, because I don't diggle in the middle of Tesco because I avoided, you know, chocolate. Although maybe, you know, I think sometimes we let the bad around people, or the bad moods, become contagious, and good moods can be contagious too. You know, you've seen that when you give somebody a big, authentic smile, they either look at you like you're strange or smile back. But so actually doing a physical action can also be a very powerful way to create change. There's a lovely exercise on the online portal. So I want to know, those of you that are on the call and that are able to answer me live, have you watched any of the videos on the Learning Hub? Either a yes or a thumbs up. Okay.
Learning on what? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Did you watch any of the videos on my website? You can log in and yes. Okay. So as part of the videos, the last video before the bonus section, it's about where to from here, and it's like a 4 or 5 minute video on behavior change. Has anybody watched that one? Okay, because that video has got some downloads. It's got a PDF ABC. So if you want to know more about how to create anchors and prompts, how to make behaviors tiny, easy, obvious, and how to celebrate, there are 3 PDF handouts there along with that video. And I just thought I'd highlight that because I know it can be easy to go online when you've only got a little bit of time and then you think you're going to go back and then you don't. I mean, I started a wine tasting course online and I just realized I didn't do the last module today. When I went to go open this, I was like, I didn't finish that wine course. So even I know that, we have the best intentions, but I guess, I'm not doing the course with anyone. There's no accountability. It's not a 21-day challenge. And that's why part of the feedback I'm going to ask you, I'm going to send a little survey that I've put together. I'm going to do it though in 2 days' time on Thursday, because I know some people want to watch this recording first. So I'll send you the link, and I've created 9 short questions. And one of the questions is, have you watched the online videos? Did you know that there were PDFs with them? Because if you didn't, then I need to make sure that in the beginning, I tell people, or maybe I do a video that shows people where to go and that kind of thing. So I just thought I'd also mention, if you're interested in the celebration, maybe as a little bit of your homework or to keep the momentum going, you can say, you know what, I'm going to go in online and I'm going to watch that 5-minute video and look at the PDFs that are available. Because it's sometimes awkward for us to physically celebrate and give ourselves permission, especially when it's something so small, like a glass of water or, doing something kind for a stranger. But the more we give ourselves permission to say, hey, good job, well done, I feel good, smiling to yourself, feeling proud, the more you are likely to repeat that behavior. So any questions around this recipe for behavior change? If you want to know more about this, on the screen, Tiny Habits, the website tinyhabits.com, you can actually sign up if you want to for a free trial where they take you through how to create a tiny behavior and how to celebrate it. And then if you're very interested in behavior change, one of the best books, and I've mentioned this before, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Anybody read the book on this call? Yeah, yeah. Would you recommend it? Yeah. And if you don't have time to listen to a book, because a lot of books are 7 hours long, James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, and Brene Brown, who I mentioned a few moments ago, they did a podcast together. So if you look up Brene Brown and James Clear podcast, it was the beginning of last year. There was part 1 and part 2, and he summarized the key points from his book and how to change behaviors, which is completely aligned with what I've just shared with you. ABC, have an anchor where your new behavior is going to be. Remember to keep your behavior like the little bubbles in champagne, very small, so that you can repeat them over and over. And then, just like champagne reminds us to celebrate, we need to celebrate and feel good when we're doing the particular behavior that we set out to do. So if you are thinking of moving on from your personal pledge, what is that going to be? Do you have an idea? So I'll put up the Wellculator again, and I'm curious, where do you feel potentially you could create a new habit? And if you've had success with this current habit, like eating fruit, let's say, how can you go deeper into that habit? So could you maybe add a second piece of fruit, or maybe a salad or a vegetable? Or if you are walking, could you potentially maybe increase the pace at which you walk? So when we have success in one area, that's also a good way to create more success instead of changing completely. Do you get the idea? So maybe give that thought, but perhaps you're quite happy with your digital detox, like you're happy with the way you're doing it and you feel like you want to do something around your diet. That's fine. But it's sometimes in the beginning when we're trying to really create our confidence around well-being, it's good to sometimes stick to the same niche and go deeper and really imprint that rather than trying too many things at once. Yeah. So the video I mentioned is on the app, or if you go to my website and you go to the tab that says log in, it takes you to my learning hub. So the background portal where you've got access to the Wellculator videos, and it's there. Yeah. So we've got somebody is going to focus on doing more with hydrating. Wonderful. So where and when will you hydrate? What will be the anchor? And remember when you do it to feel good that you're doing it, not just to mindlessly do it and then forget about it, because then you have less chance of repeating that behavior. And then something to do with stretching, maybe 5 minutes a day. Even 1 minute is a good place to start. Even one stretch, you know, if you happen to do 2 or 3, well, then you're winning, right? But even at one stretch for 1 minute, you're winning. Now, you see, 1 minute feels like, oh yeah, I can totally do that. And then you're going to feel good. But then if you only do 4 minutes, you're going to feel bad because the goal was 5. Make it easy to feel good. In fact, I'm going to put that in caps in the chat. Make it easy for you to feel good. Oh no, that's not caps. I have to rewrite that. Make it easy for you to feel good. There we go. And having more colors and just keep extending that. The more variety you have in your diet, the more you increase the microbiome and the diversity of your microflora, which then increases your immunity and does amazing stuff to your health. I was just reading an article the other day about how if they look at people's diets, they can predict what their gut will look like. And the other way around too, they can look at the microbiome in the gut and say, this person only eats 3 types of vegetables and lots of red meat and dairy. It's amazing. So the more variety you eat, the more you literally increase the life that helps keep your immune system strong and links to your gut brain. So it helps with your mental health. Yeah. Oh, lovely. I love how everyone is quite clear on what their new pledges are going to be. And it's all right if you're watching the recording of this, you don't have to do more. You can do the same thing. Remember, I said this in coaching call 1. We don't need more information. We need more time to do what's right with the information that we have. And that's really true for well-being. Great. So between now and the next season, so some of you in the Southern Hemisphere will be going into winter, we're going into summer. So potentially it feels easier to look at our well-being. But each season has its own challenges, right? So for me, I find my sleep gets very difficult in the summer because I don't like going to bed when it's still light outside, and I'm meant to be in bed a long time before 10 if I really want to feel my best. So every season has a challenge. What I want to be able to offer you is, well, 2 things. I'd love to get feedback from you. So I'll send a link to the survey in 2 days' time, just before the long weekend. And then any time over the weekend, if you can find a moment while you're stretching, while you're eating a piece of fruit, while you're looking out the window, to give me that feedback, I'd love to know, because if I do this again, I of course will take every consideration or every comment into consideration. And then what's really important is for me to be able to get a testimonial or a review, and I can accept that in any way. So I'm going to ask you, you can either send me a voice note, you can send me, if you want to film yourself doing it, you can, but not everybody's happy to do that to camera. If you just want to send me a few lines by WhatsApp or an email, any way that you send through some feedback or testimonial that you're happy for me to use, I'd love to be able to do that, because I have enjoyed this process more than I anticipated. So I'm thinking, instead of just having the material available online for people to purchase and go through, which I guess for some people like me, I was quite committed, but I still didn't finish that wine course. You see? I think what I'd like to do is do this 21-day program more regularly so people can come on. We have one pledge. There's a lot of support. And yeah, I see some nods. So that's something that I really learned from this process without getting any feedback from anybody. But of course, I'd love to know more about, and I've prompted you with some questions I specifically want to ask and know about. But mostly what I want to do is end off really celebrating you for being here. Because like I said, you could be doing a whole bunch of other things. It's not easy to lay back, chill out, think about what's important for me. Because when you look after you, when you become your own CEO, Chief Effervescent Officer, that's what we're aiming for. That's what well-being is about for me. How can I stay effervescent? Because goodness knows the world needs more effervescent people, right? And it's not going to be easy. Remember, we're going to have ups and downs, and it's not going to go as planned. But I'd like you to really honor yourself. And I celebrate you, you know, Sante, to being here, to committing the time, the energy. And what I wish for you is that you will continue to notice the small things that give you permission to feel good, because there really is magic around us. I know life is hard. It's hard. It's not easy being a human. It's not easy being alive, full stop. But there is a lot of excitement and ease. We've just got to pay attention. And it's not the big things. So don't wait for the weddings and birthdays and the weight loss and the complete vitality and getting it all perfect, because then you'll never arrive. You just won't get there. You know, notice along the way what's going well and give yourself permission to feel good, to allow little moments, little bubbles to continually uplift and add sparkle to your life, because you're more likely to then look after yourself when you do that. So yeah, I really wanted to end with that note, incredibly important. And I'm going to stop sharing there and say thank you for the comments around, yeah, I think the group I've enjoyed. I've wanted to actually post more. So that's one of the questions I'm going to ask is, was it helpful? And would you have liked more prompts? And these calls as well. I also asked, you know, did the live calls help? So thank you, Jane, for popping in. I didn't see you sneak in there, so I'm not sure how long you've been. Thank you. By the way, a belated happy birthday. I think yeah. So thank you to everybody. And even though the 21-day program has ended, I will do it again. I would like to get and collate the feedback that I'm going to get from you and then make some adjustments. So I might consider doing an advanced, maybe 21 days. So if you've been on the 21-day program already, you can come again. That could be something that I may consider doing. And Jane, we definitely celebrate you for being here, even though you don't look like you have a virus. Yes. Great. So yeah, thank you, everybody. Please look out for the link from me, which I'll share by email and in the WhatsApp group. And then I look forward to getting your feedback and your testimonials. And perhaps we can do this journey again sometime. Yeah, thank you. You're not alone. I'm always here as a partner. You can always reach out to me, and may you continue to invest in your well-being. Doesn't matter if you do it through me or somebody else or by listening to other podcasts or buying other books. But remember, don't feel bad. So don't follow programs or products that make you purchase or spend time out of guilt. That's a philosophy I don't agree with. It's got to be sparkling, fun, effervescent, joyful, sustainable, consistent. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. If you need to drop off, you've got an extra 13 minutes to your day. Yay. And if you're going to stay and chat, you're welcome to do that too.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheerio.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Easter, everyone.
Yes,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Helen. It's been really good. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Bye.
Jane, thank you. Oh, you're on mute.